Myles Berman, the Top Gun DUI defense attorney. He's been with us for a very long time supporting the show, and he's here to talk about all the DUI checkpoints and DUI enforcement patrolling for the holiday season. If you need his number, let me give it to you right now. Just put it in your phone. 1-888, the number 4, Top Gun, T-O-P-G-U-N. And his website, topgundui.com. He knows what he's talking about. And if you have any questions about DUIs, give us a call right now so he can answer all those questions. Myles Berman, ladies and gentlemen.
Good morning.
Good morning.
You, sir. Hello.
Good. How you doing?
We always know it's going to be a good day when Myles is here, helping us out.
Myles, you haven't aged in the 15 years or so we've been associated with you. Look younger now than you did in 2000.
Because he shaved his mustache off.
Yeah, that's what it is.
Oh.
Mustache ages people, right? Anthony's the birthday boy over there. He looks
But thank
50.
you, Frosty. Hi, Frank.
How you doing,
I'm
Myles?
doing fine, thank you.
Good to see you. Thanks for coming on the show. Yeah, it's the time of year where people are going to holiday parties, even though I hear that companies are reeling their holiday parties in as far as like serving alcohol or even having them.
Yeah, dry parties.
But you'll probably be invited to quite a few white elephants and things like that with your friends and family. So are they putting out double the enforcement during the season, knowing that people are going to be out and driving and maybe having a few?
Yeah, as soon as the fires are over, I think that they're going to be out in enforcement big time, especially because it's not just alcohol now that's people are taking on the roads. A lot of pot smoking.
Oh, right.
Do they have a way to determine? I mean, I know the breathalyzers for alcohol, obviously, that's their tool. But do they have a tool for marijuana?
There's, they're developing swabs, but also blood tests. So, it's a classic examination and then a blood test.
But that's done back at the station, not
back at the station.
The blood test and the bloodshot eyes and the Funyuns that are in your lap.
blow into this flaming hot Cheeto bag.
Yeah.
We're going to have to take you in.
But the problem is sometimes the cops may be getting high because when they're coming up on a car where somebody's smoking pot in the car, and it's like if they're getting hit with the smoke. I'm kidding, of course. Cops getting high.
I just heard that you can fail a drug test from secondhand marijuana smoke.
That's
like
scary.
if they're doing a drug test you for your job, and I mean, obviously it stays in your system for about a month.
That's a good defense. I like that. I'm gonna develop that.
A secondhand smoke can stay in your system like 2 or 3 days. So I guess if you went back there and they swabbed you and you're like, no, but you happened to be in, got hot boxed before you got out of the car.
At a party at Frank's house, you don't have to partake at all, but somehow you get out there, you're like, I feel a little fuzzy. I didn't do anything. I was just there. I didn't do anything.
Because January
wrong.
1, it becomes legal, right?
Yes.
Is the test...
Yeah.
January 1, it's legal if they give you a test because they pull you over. Is the test for being high the same as for being inebriated, or is it a different test?
The field sobriety test, you mean?
Yeah, the examination is similar, and sometimes they'll call in a drug recognition expert as well. It's called a DRE. And the investigation and interrogation is similar, and then of course you got the blood test back at the jail. Interestingly, it still hasn't changed where if you're pulled over for DUI alcohol and you're either refuse or you point away to greater, they'll take your license from you and give you a pink temporary license. That's not happening for drugs. So, for whatever it's worth, they don't take your license on the street when it's DUI drugs, or they're not supposed to. Sometimes they do anyway, but the cops aren't always sure.
Because you can never argue the defense with alcohol. It's my medicine, but with marijuana, you could say it's my medicine. With my painkiller, you could say it's my medicine, right? You can't do that with alcohol.
Well, no, there's people that self-medicate.
Well, yeah, I know, but it's not like
you, Heidi.
Well, yes, I know that, but I know enough that I'm not going to be like, no, officer, it's my medicine. It helps me fall asleep at night. I mean, with marijuana, that's legit. Like, I've got my medical marijuana card because I have back pain or anxiety or whatever.
It's great that you bring that up. 9 out of 10 people think that because they have a medical marijuana card, that'll somehow be a defense and preclude them from being prosecuted for DUI.
Right.
DUI drugs. I want to tell your audience, forget about that, thinking that just because you have a medical marijuana card that somehow is going to help you. As a matter of fact, 9 out of 10 times they'll want to show the medical marijuana card to the officer if they have it on them, and the officer just isn't interested in looking at it and give it back to them.
Yeah, so
it's not a get out of jail free card.
You're still not supposed to be driving.
You said that triggered that Did I digress a little
With
bit?
the pink license and the I can't remember, Miles. I'm sorry.
It's okay.
I drink a lot at night just before bed. I think we went over that.
You know what we're seeing, and it's not.
It's
not-
medicine.
and this isn't a comment or an observation on your recollection. A lot of prescription drug DUI drugs, both for people who have drugs prescribed for them, as well as prescription drugs that are prescribed for somebody else. So we're seeing that as well. And then sometimes a combination of alcohol and drugs, be it prescription, non-prescription, legal.
Because it says don't operate heavy
illegal.
machinery, and the car is considered heavy machinery, and so if it says it on the bottle and you've had it, you probably
Yeah.
shouldn't drive it.
Yeah, and sometimes people will take it, and then hours later, let's say they could take a dose every 4 hours or once every 8 hours, and they'll be driving after 6 hours or 10 hours, and there still may be some in their system, or there may be other symptoms. There may be other symptoms that the officer would see, assuming that it's relating to drugs, and it has nothing to do with drugs.
Myles L. Berman is with us. If you have any questions for him, give us a call. 1-800-955-5567 is the number. We got Todd. He was the first one through. Hello, Todd.
Hey, good morning.
Say hello to the Top Gun DUI defense attorney.
Hey, a quick question for you guys. If I approach a DUI checkpoint, am I required to roll down my window? Can I just hand the information through my sunroof?
Oh, sunroof.
Well, do you have a sunroof?
Question one. See, he's thorough. Miles L. Berman is thorough.
Okay.
But you know what? I understand that they have these flashlights that can detect alcohol. Why do I have to roll down my window? They can hear me. You can hear me talking through my window, but if I can hand my information out my sunroof, that fulfills the agreement.
You know, there was a video on the internet a while back where a guy actually would have things written out and put it up to the window, and then they show the officer eventually letting the guy through. I wouldn't recommend that. Try and hand it through the sunroof. There's going to be observations. My guess is that I haven't seen this before, so my guess is that the officer is going to still see certain observations to indicate that you may be impaired. So he may see bloodshot eyes. He may see uncoordination on your part that could trigger a further full-blown investigation. So I'm not. I wouldn't recommend that, but
Could he put it in his report?
This is a free country.
Yeah.
And
that you were
people can try
uncooperative
it.
if you try to do shenanigans like that. Okay, you're being difficult for no reason.
You're
Second
cooperating,
report-
you're just being difficult.
Well, yeah. Why be difficult in the situation?
Well, here's what's required.
Thanks, Todd.
You need to identify yourself, driver's license, proof of insurance, and proof of registration. And so usually people do that face to face. But you don't have to answer the questions: where you're coming from, where you're going to, how much you had to drink, how much you had to smoke.
you don't have to, if they ask how much you had to drink, you don't have to
No,
answer
you
that
don't.
question.
You don't have to. When you drank, where you drank. These are all.
So when they ask you those questions, you're supposed to, just be silent, or should you say, "Well, how much have you had to drink?" Ask them the same question back. Where are you
first.
coming
Let me tell
from?
You first.
I've been such a supporter of this show that I'm getting people who are repeating to me what I'm about to say and what I've been saying for, I don't know. You guys been in LA for 20 some years, 20, however long. Is it
Crazy.
You've been
20?
there from the beginning, dude.
Is it 20?
Yeah.
Yes,
20?
20 years now.
Oh, wow.
We all look older.
It
Miles
goes-
doesn't look older at
No,
all.
you-
It's bizarre and not fair.
No, you guys look great. So you don't have to answer the officer's questions other than identify yourself. You can politely refuse to answer the officer's questions. The field sobriety tests are completely voluntary. You can politely refuse the field sobriety test. And for alcohol, if you're older than 21, the portable breath test before being arrested is completely voluntary. The officer's supposed to tell you it's completely voluntary, and they don't. And you can politely refuse the portable
So the key word
breath
is be
test
polite,
before.
be respectful.
I don't know what to do now. I know it's hypothetical, but let's say, Miles, I've had a beer or two, or a margarita or two at lunch, but I'm not crap faced. I still think I can drive, and I'm not
You
bleep
do
faced.
look a little different the last time I saw
Right.
you.
Now, if I wanted just one or two beers, you roll them in. I know you can smell the beer. I really did have one or two beers, but I'm not impaired. So I want you to give me the test because I'm going to pass. But if you ask me if you've been drinking and I say I refuse to answer, well, now they're really going to go after me, right?
Well, first of all, Frosty, if you were to say I had a couple of beers, do you actually think you're going to be believed?
Right.
No, I know.
Plus, you've opened the door to the investigation by saying you've had a couple of
That's-
beers.
But if I've
Yeah, that's
legitimately
right.
just had a beer or two, I'm not supposed to even answer that question, even though I've only had two. What do I say? Have you been drinking? What do I say?
Have you been drinking?
Officer, I respect what you're doing. I have a lot of respect for police officers. However, I just prefer not to answer your questions.
Okay. Even if I'm
Speak
not
with my
drunk.
attorney.
Those are.
I'm
Yeah.
not inebriated. I've just had a beer or two. Say it like that. Okay.
They're going to continue to ask you questions, but why would you give them information and evidence
That can be used against you in a court of law.
Yeah, because a lot of this is just all designed to get you to take a breath test
So-
for alcohol. Get to
So even
get
if you're
to
pulled
that
over in the
point.
middle of the day, you haven't even had a drink, don't answer those questions either. Even if you're like, nope, haven't had a drink, it's noon. If they ask you, like you're coming from a martini lunch or something like that, just if everyone answers the questions the same
Sir,
way by not
respect what you
answering
do,
them, then
I'm-
that's what they'll get used to. So if we all start saying we're not going to answer those questions, thank you very much, that's what they're going to be used to hearing as opposed to 2 beers. That's what most of us say is 2
but
beers.
like
Right?
an hour
Is that the most
ago-
common answer? 2 beers.
Yeah, and you know or a couple of drinks.
Yeah.
I mean, and what's interesting is that just because somebody says that they had a couple of beers and that's what the officer writes down in court and it comes out in a trial, that doesn't mean that the person was under the influence of alcohol. All that means is the person didn't want to go to jail to begin with.
Right.
I mean, a person could have 4, 5, 6, 7 drinks, 8 drinks, but it
Enough
depends
about
on
Frank.
over what period of time.
Right.
And if
But
you
yeah,
have it over a long period of time, you're not going to be.
Everybody's done this
Under
where
the
it's
influence.
time to go. It's like, let's get out of here, and you still have about half a beer left, and you're like, okay, hold on.
Yeah. Oh,
And then you
no.
put it down. I just swirled it in my mouth, 6 ounces of beer. Now, if I got pulled over coming out of the parking lot and I blew right then, it'd be giving me a false reading if I just had 1 beer and I just swished with a half a beer.
Right.
I'm more impressed that you just swished 6 ounces. of
Yeah.
beer.
Right. I've never witnessed that.
But
If you're gonna
yes,
chug your
you're
beer
gonna
before
have
you
it.
leave, that's trash.
You're gonna have the odor on your, the odor of alcohol stays on your breath for quite a long time.
Doesn't it take like 15 minutes for it where they can take a true reading after you stop drinking or something like that? What's the time frame?
There's a requirement that a regulation that they have to observe you for 15 minutes before they give you a breath test. But that doesn't really mean that you're at a level where the alcohol that they measure is what's in your blood. It's as simple as that. Sometimes it could take 15 to 30 minutes before you may get a measurement
Like
that's
everybody
closer.
absorbs differently.
That's correct.
So it's
Right.
he's gonna, Frank. As we've done on the show many times, it's like you're gonna blow higher than me for weight, food, whatever it is.
So in Frank's scenario, this is like there's a pub like 1 mile away
Except
from my house.
Frosty. Frosty, he absorbs pretty quick.
Yeah, he's
I'm like
very
a giant
absorbent.
sponge. A giant tired sponge. Anyway, Frank's example, there's a pub that's a 90-second drive away from where I live, okay? So it's into the happy hour. Okay, chug if you got him. Now I just chug a beer. If I can get home before it gets into my blood system, see what I'm saying? So if I responsibly stop drinking after 2 or 3 beers and then I chug that last one, I'm not over the limit. But if I get pulled over and we wait 15 minutes before they test my breath, now that's soaked into my bloodstream and now I am over the limit and I'm screwed.
By the way, if you're that close to the pub, walk.
Well, see, I don't subscribe to that 15-minute theory. Sometimes it's an hour, 2 hours, 3 hours before a person actually
You metabolize differently.
has the alcohol absorbed in their system. But what the danger is that if you take a breath test shortly after drinking, or even relatively shortly after you're drinking, it's going to measure too high compared to what's in your blood. It always does. Even the state's experts will tell you that.
and that's your
People don't
defense
know
and when
this.
you represent people as part of that?
It depends on the facts of the case, but yes. And just to give you a quick, perfect example, if a person is driving and they end up blowing a .15 and a .17, that sounds pretty bad, doesn't
Yuck, yeah.
it? Except,
Amateurs.
No, Frank.
kidding.
except, well, you haven't seen them walk. I mean, they could be, you know, pretty experienced and
Right.
you can give sober-looking field sobriety tests. The .15, .17, you can't go to a 1.5 to a .17 in 2 to 5 minutes. It just doesn't happen. It's scientifically impossible. So when you get down into the weeds, there's actually all kinds of ways to attack breath tests.
Myles L. Berman's with us, the Top Gun DUI defense attorney. Eric on line 2 says, can he refuse the field sobriety test? And if he does, will they get arrested?
You may get arrested, and then you're now at the point where I haven't been asked yet, but it opens up the door for that. What do you do after you get arrested when you've politely refused?
888, the number 4 Top Gun.
That's right. Yeah. You got it. Frank had to look for it. It's there. It's there.
It's in my wallet.
Your audience is so loyal that we get calls as the cops are pulling them over.
Yeah.
I mean, it's pretty amazing. But after you're arrested, you have a choice of a blood or a breath, generally speaking. And you can revoke that. When we get our driver's license, we consent to take a blood or a breath after we get our license. But you can revoke that. So you have a right to refuse. But the consequences can be much greater with the DMV than in court.
Losing your
license.
license.
In court, without a chemical test, a breath test, or a blood test, it's a much more difficult road to hoe for the prosecutor. So, I don't tell people
But you
what
lose your
they
license,
should do.
right, for a year with the DMV?
You could on the first offense without any chance of a restricted license. So I don't tell people what to do. I just tell them what the law says they can do.
Danny says he was pulled over for throwing a cigarette out the window, but he doesn't even smoke.
Nope.
Yeah, hi. I was driving Lyft one night, and it was pretty late at night, and I was coming down the hill over by Chino Hills, and an officer pulled me over. I had my arm out my window, and when she pulled me over, she said that I'd thrown a cigarette out my window. I don't smoke. I obviously wasn't drinking because I was driving Lyft, and she insisted that I was smoking and kept asking me, if I smoked, and I she asked me so many times that I almost thought that maybe I was smoking, but I didn't. So she finally, after a few times, she took my license. She didn't even ask for my registration or insurance, and then she checked it, and then she came back and said, "Okay, thank you. I believe you. Have a good night." What was that about?
It was about you should thank your lucky stars.
Yeah.
That you didn't get a citation
And she
or
ran your license
anything like that.
right.
Yeah. So I don't know why she pulled you over. Did you throw anything out the window?
I don't smoke. I even told the officer, I said, smell my hands. But, I'm like, I
Smell
don't
my
smoke.
finger to a female officer. Don't you watch the news? You can't do that.
Sometimes police officers, say things that may not be accurate.
Right.
And so I don't know why the officer used that as a
And maybe,
pretext
Danny,
to
if you were
pull
driving a
over.
Lyft, did you have a passenger who was smoking and then he tossed it out the window behind you?
That's good.
No. There was
passenger?
nobody back in I had just dropped somebody off. There was nobody in the car. I was by myself. I don't allow passengers to smoke in the car. So, no, that wasn't it.
It's
I
a
even showed her. I
mystery.
said,
Thank you, Danny.
look at my app.
Thank you, man.
It's just a big mystery.
Well, I think he said he drove for Lyft, and that's something that we should think about first this holiday season.
Yes.
Is calling a Lyft, an Uber, taxi cab, having the designated driver, the ways that we avoid being inebriated and driving and making poor choices. But also, if you're just going to an office party and you had one glass of wine or one beer and you decided to drive and got pulled over, then when you get in that situation, the man to call, Myles L. Berman, 1-888, the number 4, TOPGUN. Go to his website, topgundui.com. Check it all out. And at Myles L. Berman on Twitter, where Myles always posts the checkpoints, because that's public information. So you look it up and you repost it for everybody to see. So follow Myles on Twitter. Always good to see you, man.
Yes.
Thank you. Same here. Merry Christmas. Happy Hanukkah. Happy New Year to your audience.
Oh, we celebrate Happy Shaka Hanukkah. I don't know if you were listening
It's
earlier.
a blast.
And yes, we all have rides tomorrow for the reindeer
Yes.
games.
Yes,
we'll
we
be
do.
drinking responsibly tomorrow.
Yeah, the reindeer game's happening tomorrow down at the Slide Bar in Fullerton. Live broadcast starting at 6 a.m. So be sure and come out with $5. A $5 donation to St. Jude's Children's Research Hospital gets you in. And thank you to Bellator MMA for sponsoring the whole day tomorrow. And they have their big event, Bellator 192, on January 20th at the Forum. So you can get your tickets now. We're going to have a bunch of tickets, I guess, tomorrow at the Slide Bar
Cool.
to be giving away. So be sure and come out for that if you're
Good
a
to
big
see you,
Bellator
Myles.
fan.
Great to see all of you, too. Thank you very much.
And congratulations to Matt from Corona. He heard the Harley roar earlier in the show, so now he's qualified to win that Harley Davidson
Matt.
Street 750 and $1,000. And your next shot is coming up here with Marcy. So when you hear the Harley rev, be the 25th caller, all powered by Bartell's Harley Davidson in Marina Del Rey. Now we must apologize to those of you that we might have offended and get the hell out of here.
Sorry that people only had 1 or 2 beers. Really, officer, really, officer, really, I swear. Pearl Harbor, Larry Bird, and Bruce Springsteen.
Catholic weddings, special education teachers, and colored lights.
Hello Kitty, Drew Barrymore, Preacher's Daughters, and people.
Oh, well, we're done. That covers it.
Medical marijuana patients, John Travolta, Wham, and the Film Actors Guild.
South Beach Santa, Barbara Streisand, Jim Carrey, and Shaka Khan.
Kids with bready teeth, chip bag lickers, line cutters, and ugly children.
Forkers, Drew Bledsoe, Rabbis, and Baby Jesus.
Tennis camps, Nicole Kidman, My Aunt Dell, and Elf on a Shelf.
Jordan Peele, Topher Grace, Tatted Santas, and Myles Berman. You really have to listen to the whole show. We are Frosty, Heidi, and Frank.